you, Allison. Just wave at me when it's time to finish. I get long-winded, as y'all know. This is definitely an hour lecture, but I'm cutting it 30 today, 30 tomorrow, so you got to come back tomorrow if you really want the final thing. So I've got to try to convince y'all that 98% of diseases is coming from your thought life. And that might sound kind of crazy, but it's well documented in the medical literature. You just probably haven't been told that or explained or shown that. But that's a pretty big leap for most people. If y'all have heard me talk, most of y'all probably have before, maybe not such a big leap for y'all. But I'm still gonna act like you haven't heard. So for those that haven't, y'all can help make that leap. So spiritual roots of physical disease and our thought world, our thoughts in our mind, how that can impact genetic expression. But definitely tomorrow you're going to have to come back. Today, the first half is going to be more the setup and the what. And then tomorrow is going to be the how. It'll be the whiteboard and explanation of how does this actually work. So real quick, functional medicine versus conventional. You need to get your head wrapped around that. Conventional medicine, we're taught how to treat a symptom. I tell people all the time, I don't want to sound harsh here, but race for the cure, run for the cure, jump rope for the cure, heart disease, cancer, whatever. There's not going to be a cure in a pill. That's just the way it is my opinion. We can wait around another 100 years for the ivory towers at Harvard and Hopkins and everywhere to come out with the cure in a pill, but it's not going to happen. All we can do is manage symptoms. You can manage disease with pills, with pharmaceuticals. When the root cause of a symptom is diet and lifestyle, then to truly fix it, you got to address diet and lifestyle. In medical school, I got 2 hours of nutrition lectures out of 4 years of lectures and no lifestyle lectures. So no wonder we don't cure anything. So functional medicine is trying to get at the cause, where conventional medicine, we're just treating a symptom. High blood sugar, that's a symptom. High blood pressure is a symptom. Pain from fibromyalgia, those are symptoms. We call them diseases like fibromyalgia, but it's just a label to your symptom. A really smart guy that just disappeared, Hippocrates, said all disease begins in the gut, and he was right. He also said some other really cool things, but I've got to go fast today, so we're not going to get into all his cool quotes, but he was a really smart guy. Edison, pretty smart guy, said the doctor of the future will instruct his patients in the care of the human frame and how to diet himself instead of giving himself medicine. And then this guy's a founder of modern medicine, founder of Johns Hopkins Medical School, William Osler, said the first duty of the physician is to educate the masses, not to take medicine. So these are really smart guys, all saying the same thing. Basically, hey, there's more to it than just taking a pill. Real quick, some disease rates. This is from the 1950s to 2000. This is diabetes going up and up and up and up. And this isn't number, this is percent. In every disease, I'm going to just run through real quick. This is celiac from the 90s to the mid 2010, escalating. Here is thyroid cancer rates from the 1970s to 2009, escalating. Kidney cancer and pelvic cancers. Here's kidney failure deaths escalating. Dementia, senile dementia is just another word for Alzheimer's, basically. All the dementias are lumped into senile dementia, but mostly it's Alzheimer's. Those are escalating at rapid rates. Here's autism. This is an old stat, 1 in 110 in 2009. Now it is 1 in 36-ish, depending on what stat you look at. 1 in 40 for sure, but probably 1 in 36. It's an exponential rise. 1 out of 2 men with cancer in our lifetime. This is an old slide too. Now it's 1 out of 2.5 women. So every other guy in here, if you use the statistics, I'm sure not y'all are a different breed. But in general, it's going to be half the guys are going to have cancer and almost that for women. Projected Alzheimer's rates, actually this curve is starting to rise more exponentially. Diabetes is quadrupled since 1980. I had a type 2 diabetic 7-year-old kid in Post, Texas. I was the doctor in Post for 7 years. I was diagnosing kids with adult diabetes. The CDC came out a few years ago and said the kids born after the year 2000 will not outlive their parents' lifespan. This is the first time since the American Revolution. Lifespans had been going up and up and up so that kids will live to be, say your parents lived to be 77, you'll live to be 78. But we've just gone up and up and up until recently. You may have seen the last few years in the news are now, we've been on this downward curve for a little bit, and CDC came out with this a couple years ago. The kids are just sick. 54% now, probably last time I talked to y'all, quoted 46 or 48%, but it went up. 54% of kids have a chronic disease. These are autoimmune diseases, MS and Crohn's and type 1 diabetes, asthma. These are all autoimmune. All autoimmune diseases are on the rise. Your own immune system's attacking yourself. In med school, we're taught that that just happens for some unknown reason. The immune system just goes berserk. When you're 30 years old, all of a sudden it doesn't recognize your thyroid anymore. It starts attacking it. That's called Hashimoto's. Here's your autoimmune stuff. 1 in 9 women, 8th leading largest cause of death, 8 times more likely to have autoimmune than breast cancer. And it's happening across the world too. If you adopt a Western lifestyle, you'll adopt our disease rates. It's very clear, especially in the Oriental countries where traditionally they lived long and healthy, like Japanese women. They have very little female cancers, uterine and breast cancer. When they move to America, you watch them for 20 years, their cancer rates go right up to our rates. So it's not genetics, or that wouldn't happen if it was just their genes. It's the influence outside the genes called epigenetics. There's things in your environment that turn these genes on and off. You can have the BRCA gene, ladies, for breast cancer, keep it turned off. We have the worst life expectancy. We die the youngest, and we have the highest infant mortality. More of our babies die than anybody else. And we take a lot of drugs. Does this have a pointer on it? I don't need a pointer, I just need to talk. These are just slides that show you we take a lot of drugs. This is broken down by age group and how many drugs, 1, 2, 3 to 4, or 5 or more. Even the kids down on the lower part, lower left, 0 to 11 years old, they're taking a lot of drugs. And of course, if you're over 60, you're going to be on a drug. I think if you added all those percentages up, that's like 70% of the people over 60. This slide just shows all the things we do. CAT scans, MRIs, tonsillectomies, bypass, knee replacements, cesarean sections. We're in the top 1, 2, or 3 of anybody in the world. We do a lot of stuff. We take a lot of drugs. We spend the most money. So I'm just trying to paint a picture here that we're super sick. Other countries that start to eat and act like us and be stressed like us, they get super sick. Despite doing lots of stuff, taking lots of drugs, and spending lots of money, we're still super sick and dying the youngest. Obviously, something's wrong. This is a real busy slide that just says the same thing. We die the youngest, our babies die more, and we're just sicker than dogs compared to everybody else. So any measuring stick you want to hold up, we fail. Whether it's outcomes or finances or whatever, we're just doing really bad. And these articles keep coming out. 80% of the #1 cause of death in America is heart attacks. We unfortunately had a young man at KPA where my kids go to school that a daddy passed away from a heart attack last week. We had another young dad last year pass away from a heart attack. It's the #1 killer. But that article has said 80%. It's not your cholesterol. It's your diet and lifestyle. This one, it's real fine print, but it's 5 to 10% of all cancers. In that first paragraph, you see that 5 to 10% of all cancers can be attributed to genetic defects. 5% is genes. 90 to 95% have their root in environment and lifestyle. So that's your #2 killers, cancer. So your #1 and #2 killers in America, those 2 articles just said it's diet and lifestyle. Third leading cause is doctors. So when you just throw a bunch of drugs and do a bunch of surgeries to treat a symptom, instead of the root cause, there's going to be unintended consequences. My office manager in Post, her mama died from a drug I prescribed her. Appropriately prescribed. It just happens. It's one of those rare side effects. Methotrexate toxicity, multi-system organ failure from methotrexate toxicity. Methotrexate was a drug to suppress her immune system. Why would I want to do that? Because her immune system was attacking her knees and giving her lots of pain and swelling in her knees. So we give her a drug to shut the immune system down, but it has a potential unintended consequence of shutting all your organs down and killing you. So how did we get here? American homeopathy. Homeopathy is a whole different type of medicine. It's more of a natural medicine. It works with the body's natural healing mechanisms to help heal it, as opposed to treat a symptom. And it was around before the AMA. 1844, AMA came in 1847. There used to be tons, thousands of homeopathic physicians in America. Then we got into this germ theory with Louis Pasteur, started chasing germs. I'll talk about that in just a second. Then drugs started coming on board. Aspirin was the first one in 1899. Then Flexner, Carnegie came along and said, hey, Mr. Flexner, go around the country and look at all these medical schools. There's homeopathic, osteopathic, allopathic, herbalist, chiropractic. There were a number of different kind of medical schools. So Flexner went around, looked at them all, and they came back and said, we need to standardize medical education, and we're going to standardize it to the allopathic model. Allopaths treat with drugs. So you were down to only 2 homeopathic medical schools in 1923. After that report came out, they started shutting down all these other schools. And if you did not graduate from an MD allopathic school, you were a quack. 10,000 herbalists were out of business by 1925. The chiropractors survived, but they were highly persecuted. Of course, the antibiotics were big, and antibiotics can be life-saving. They came out in the 1940s. Penicillin saved everybody's life, so all of a sudden the mindset was a pill's going to fix me. And we started looking for miracle drugs and quick fixes ever since, and we haven't got off that track. And now we're all going bankrupt. All the insurance companies can't afford any of this because if you're not going to address the root cause and you're just going to treat symptoms, the only way insurance works is if you have enough healthy people paying in and not using the system. Well, now the teeter-totter's flipped. We don't have enough healthy people not needing the system. Pretty much everyone needs the system now. So the insurance fails, and you just can't medicate yourself out of something you ate or behaved yourself into. I hope y'all are buying my line here because I'm going really fast. Cleveland Clinic bought the line. Dr. Mark Hyman was a small town country doctor like I was in Post. He was in Idaho, sicker than a dog though. And I think his IBS and depression and some other stuff, and his colleagues gave him drugs that didn't help. He got worse. He was going to have to go on disability or retire. He was going to lose his family. He went to the medical school and to the specialist. He didn't get any better. And so like every doctor I've ever met in functional medicine, because they were sick themselves and basically going to die or get divorced and lose their job, they were forced to look outside the system, the conventional system, and they got better. So now he's the head of the Institute of Functional Medicine at Cleveland Clinic. There's $1 million new wing of Cleveland Clinic. They've got a 6-month waiting list. I heard the other day Dr. Hyman say that that 6-month wait list, they'll encourage those people to go to the health coaches, which are the folks who just teach diet and lifestyle modification. And 40% of the wait list gets off the wait list. They get fixed without the doctor. I think it could be a lot higher than that. The funny little quote from Hyman, Toby, you don't want me. Toby's the head of the CEO of Cleveland Clinic. And they were courting Dr. Hyman to come there. And Hyman says, you don't want me there because if I go there, I'm going to tell you that most of what you're doing is wrong. And in fact, you're harming people, and that I would want to implement programs that are going to empty out half your hospitals and clear out most of your procedure rooms. That's how a hospital makes money, obviously. Got to have full rooms. And you're just not going to like that. Reduce your hospital stays, doctor visits. Are you okay with that? Meaning the money's going to go away. And to Cosgrove's credit, he said yes, and they hired him. So functional medicine boils down to the body's got to fix itself. Give it what it needs and avoid what it doesn't. If you give the body the wrong raw materials, put the wrong things in, it's not going to function right, just like your car. When it doesn't function right, inflammation occurs. That's a whole nother lecture of how that happens. But just we'll go with this whole, inflammation, I think is well known by every doctor now. Cancer, heart disease, Alzheimer's, autism, everything's inflammation. Just go Google your disease or your family member's disease and inflammation, you'll see 1 million hits. So here was the theory. Germs and toxins get in the body. The immune system's got a hand tied behind its back because it's demineralized and stressed out and overburdened with sugar. It can't work right. So these toxins or germs build up. The immune system turns on to fight them and creates inflammation that creates symptoms we call disease. That was kind of the theory I used to go by 7 years ago when I first started functional medicine practice. And that was based off this germ theory that Pasteur came up with. Pasteur wanted to demonstrate experimentally that microscopic organisms were the cause of disease. And so everyone went with that germ theory. But his contemporary, Bernard, said, no, the terrain is everything, the germ is nothing. He was right. We can't just keep chasing bugs and trying to whack these bugs. It's like, I think I have a slide here. I'm going to skip these guys. Well, I got to say this one. This is one of my mentors. He taught me a lot. And I thought I was starting to understand it like a year into this new practice I was doing. And he called me up one day and asked me how I was going. And I said, really good, teaching people how to kill germs and detox these toxins. Inflammation goes down and their diseases are getting better. He said, well, that's good, Ben. But as you mature, you'll come to understand you can kill alligators all day long, but if you don't drain the swamp, the alligators come back. And the swamp he was talking about was your terrain, just like the cockroaches in your kitchen. You can go stomp all the cockroaches every single morning, but if you don't take out the trash and clean up the terrain, they're just going to keep coming back. Same with the algae in your fish tank. Get the pH right, the oxygen level right, and everything, the temperature right, and the algae will keep itself away. You don't have to go in there and scrub every day. Get the vultures out of your pasture by removing the dead carcasses. It's all about the terrain. Here are the things that affect your terrain. Nutrition, obviously. You got to have the right inputs for your physiology to work right to keep the bugs at bay and the toxins out of you. God made you to detox. You don't have to go. I mean, this is debatable because we live in such a toxic world. I could listen to a debate on doing some detoxing, but I believe if you're mineralized properly, you have the right nutrient levels, you're hydrated properly, you're moving every day, your body's going to detox. And you have the right thoughts, which is where we're going. And we'll get to it, but you got to come back tomorrow for that. Oxygen levels, obviously, that's movement. You got to get up and move. Get up from your desk every hour and walk down the hall. Walk up and down the steps and go back to your desk. Spend 2 minutes moving throughout the day. If you sit for 8 hours and go to the gym for 45 minutes at the end of the day, it does not erase the negative impact of sitting for 8 hours. I'm not saying working out for 45 minutes isn't some benefit, but it doesn't totally erase the negativity of that 8 hours of sitting. Get up and down, up and down, up and down. Do some squats at your desk, get a standing desk, whatever you need to do. pH levels are greatly affected by stress. When you're stressed, when you're in fight or flight mode, what do you do when you're ready to fight or run? Everything hunches. Those are your flexor muscles. Flexor muscles contract your biceps, your quads, your neck, everything, all those back muscles, your tense muscles. If you're in fight or flight all day, you're tensed all day, that changes the electrolyte balance in your cells and it changes the pH. Also, your heart rate goes up a little bit. Your breathing rate goes up a little bit, almost like a mini panic attack, but you don't even know you're doing it because it's so subtle at your desk when you're just kind of like that, or driving home, even holding that steering wheel, or you get home if you have 6 kids running at you, you get in fight or flight mode. But that affects pH levels. When pH levels change, the algae grows. Bugs love an acidic environment, and your body, the fluids around your cell will get more acidic as you're in fight or flight mode. Of course, toxin levels affect your terrain, but emotions are huge. Just real fast, we gotta talk nutrition just because that's what we do. But my main point of these slides is the food doesn't have it anymore. The farming techniques have altered the ground, and the ground doesn't have the minerals. So if the ground doesn't have the minerals, then your food doesn't have the minerals. It takes 26 apples, I think that is, to equal 1 apple from 1950. Here's all the mineral depletions, the 1900s on the far left, all the way to 2010. And those are mineral levels: phosphorus, selenium, copper, mag, cobalt, calcium, zinc, iron. The mineral contents in the soil go down as man introduces a new farming technique. So in the 1920s, mechanized farming comes in. That's a plow. When you till the ground, you bust up the fungi. The fungi is what helps create an environment in the soil that allows bacteria to thrive. And the bacteria is what works on the rocks and pebbles and stones and sand to get the minerals from a rock form into a form that the plant can take up, a water-soluble form. But it starts with the fungi. The fungi are needed to create the environment for bacteria to grow in the soil, and a plow disrupts the fungi. When you put go fast forward to 1950, ammonium nitrate, that's the first man-made chemical synthetic fertilizer, that harms the good bacteria because it's amazing how God made these plants. The roots of the plant actually secrete signals, chemical signals, to recruit the bacteria that will provide the minerals the plant needs. So if you're going to give free minerals from the top, from your fertilizer machine to the plant, then the plant doesn't have to do that anymore. It doesn't have to recruit the bacteria. So you're going to miss the bacteria and you're going to miss other minerals besides ammonia, the big 3, NPK. Pesticides, herbicides, fungicides came in, that kills bugs. If you don't have bugs, you don't get the minerals. Glyphosate at the end, that's Roundup. Glyphosate's a chelator, so it grabs minerals, holds on to them, and won't let you can't use them. The plant can't use them, and you can't use them. So you get down to the very end, there's no more minerals. If there's no minerals in the food, there's no minerals in you when you eat that food. So those terrains, acidity, the 10 American study, were just born toxic. That was a 2001. They took 10 babies, umbilical cord blood from these babies, deferred day of right when they're born. They sucked the umbilical cord blood. They studied it, 286 different toxins in a newborn child. And these are healthy babies, healthy moms, healthy pregnancies. These are just the way Americans are born now. And these are heavy metals, they are pesticides, plastics, all kinds of stuff. So there's definitely other contributing factors to terrain, but I'm going to try to convince you the emotions and the thoughts are the number one biggest contributor. And if you're lined up with your thoughts with the truth, I think that builds resiliency into your cells and they're able to handle more of this toxic burden. We don't have to be scared of the toxins, not that you purposely go eat Roundup or anything else. I mean, you steward your health, and when you have the knowledge, especially my people die from lack of knowledge. Once you get the knowledge, then it's on you to go do something about that. Don't ignore the knowledge you gain. But I think you will build a great amount of resiliency in your system, in your cells, and I'll prove it to you tomorrow, where that emotional component will be the number one biggest component of all of it. You cannot diet, exercise, and hydrate yourself into total wellness, I don't believe. If you are stressed out and you're stressed out because your thoughts aren't lined up with the truth, there's going to be consequences of that. And I mean, I'm not perfect. Nobody's perfect. There's one that was, but I think we can strive more and more and more to be at peace all the time, despite our circumstances. We know circumstances are going to keep getting worse and worse and worse. But if we believe this, which I'm not, I'll just tell you, I'm a believer. I talk to people that aren't believers all the time, but that doesn't keep me from telling you my beliefs. So I believe this verse: our struggle is not against flesh and blood, but against the rulers, authorities, and powers of this dark world, and against spiritual forces of evil in the heavenly realms. And the coolest thing, I think, I'm just kind of weird this way about functional medicine. If you take it far enough, it goes into quantum medicine. So there's quantum physics versus Newtonian physics, and we'll get into this more tomorrow. But quantum physics goes subparticles. If you remember back to your physics class, an atom, protons, neutrons, electrons, those are particles. A negative particle, positive particle, neutral particle. And we thought those were the smallest things. But now we know there's something below that, quarks. It's smaller than a proton. And then below quarks is tachyons. And below tachyons, there's some fermions. And then it gets down low enough, it's not a particle anymore. It's just vibrational energy, consistent with the vibrational frequency of the spoken word. As in, let there be light, and God spoke everything into existence. So at the very base of this hard table and our bones and skin and everything, if you go down far enough, it's not actually solid particles, it's vibrational energy. And that vibrational energy is impacted by your thoughts and the thoughts that could be introduced to you from this spiritual realm, outside of time and space. And that's what quantum physics proves. There's something outside of time and space running this whole thing. I mean, it's just factual quantum physics if you understand it far enough. And most quantum physics are believers in the Bible, because this supranatural force. So there's natural things, that's mass, that's stuff you can sense with your senses. You can see, smell, touch, taste, feel, look under a microscope. But then there's stuff outside the natural. It's called supernatural. So quantum physics proves there is a supernatural force outside the natural, but somehow still connected to the natural. And that's what we'll get into tomorrow to really drive home this point of emotions affecting, we'll stop there because it's time, I think, emotions affecting our health. So hopefully I led you right up to want to come back tomorrow to be continued, the rest of the story, as Paul Harvey would say. Just to prove genes aren't it. So these mice have a gene that make them fat and yellow. The fat yellow mice will always be fat and yellow. Every baby they have will be fat and yellow. but it's because they have a genetic defect that involves the B vitamins. They can't utilize their B vitamins. So when they give these mamas mice the right B vitamins prior to conception, the babies turn out normal. They still have the wrong gene. That baby still has the gene that says be yellow and fat, but it didn't go yellow and fat because there's something outside the genes that affected those genes. So get past the gene theory. It's not genes, it's outside the genes. And tomorrow we'll talk about how your thoughts impact those genes. Okay? Questions? All right. I hope you weren't disappointed that we didn't get totally into the thoughts, but 30 minutes tomorrow, we will give you all you need.